still does mean it's going to be a wet and windy day. Now, the strongest winds moving up through these Irish Sea coastal areas as we start off on Wednesday, 50 to 60 mile/hour gusts around coastal areas, 40 to 50 inland for some of the most exposed locations. A lot of cloud cover across the British Isles. A lot of the rainfall for England and Wales, light and patchy, but steadier and heavier by now.
Hello and welcome to another day of landscape photography. Today I've come to the Yorkshire Dales again. I'm here at Goredale Scar. I'm just aiming to take some interesting images in really pretty poor weather conditions, but there's not really any such thing as bad light. So I've come to make the most of these interesting conditions when it's likely that I'm going to be here all by myself. And then at the end of the video, we'll go back to the studio and I'll give you a few little tips that you can use to process images, take it in bad weather, take it in grey conditions, to really bring out that moody feel, to make it into a really interesting image. I'd really love it if you were to come with me. Let's go. So there is actually a path up that waterfall, which I was planning to take today, but there was a lot of water there. It looked a little bit sketchy. I'm by myself, so I've decided not to take the risk. I'm low on confidence as well because I'm still not feeling very well. The rocks are very slippery and essentially it's defeated me, but I'm 37 years old now, nearly 38. I don't take the risks that I used to when I was younger. Got people relying on me. Frustrating. I'm going to take the long way around instead. I'm going to get up there at some stage though, definitely. Something I've been thinking about recently is about our relationship with the landscape, because I think in the modern world, many people have become massively disconnected from it. As landscape photographers, I think we can make a difference, not only by going out and enjoying it ourselves, but by communicating to people through our images. And that's what I'm trying to do with all my pictures, is to tell a story. I want to tell the story of this landscape so more people will be enticed to enjoy it. Because I think once that enjoyment comes, I think it's at that point that people would take more interest in conservation, looking after the planet, recycling, all those sorts of things that we need to do to look after the environment. Now for me personally, as my landscape photography journey is developing, I'm finding that when I go into an area, I want to really get in touch with the landscape to be able to tell that story a little bit better. And I think in order to do that, you've got to experience the landscape in all its different forms, whether it's the seasons, whether it's day or night. And the reason I've come out today is to experience it in bad weather as well. Although I actually really enjoy it out in weather like this. I think it's exciting. I think it's a bit of an adventure. You really get to know the landscape in a different way to when it's just gorgeous and beautiful sunshine. So that's what I'm here for today. Mixed with that, I want to be able to create this drama and this energy that I feel when I'm looking out here at this rain blasting in my face. Mother Nature is full of energy. It's dramatic, it's moody. The clouds are rolling in over the hills. The rock and the limestone here in Yorkshire looks great. And I want to try and put some of that into an image. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. It's something I've been giving a lot of thought to, and I think it's really important, and I hope more people think about it too. Right, it is extremely windy now and I am right on the edge of this pretty precarious cliff with the wind trying to blow me off it. It is an absolutely stunning location as I've walked across to Malham Cove. This is the shot I'm going to take because I think it's full of that drama, that energy and that moody feeling that I'm really looking for today in my image. It may be the only image I capture today because I'm really not feeling very well. I may have to bring things to a close pretty quickly today, but it's great conditions for this type of shot. So if I spin around, I really don't want to let go of the camera on the tripod at the moment because it is just so windy. That's the cove there. It just looks absolutely amazing. And the composition is really straightforward. I'll talk through it quickly. I've got to the edge of the cliff as much as I can because the more you can see down over this cliff, the better it gets. That is why I've raised the tripod neck up as well, to get the camera into a perspective as high as I can possibly get as we get a small lull in the wind. I've then got those dramatic layered cliffs running right across the right-hand side of the image. I've then got the path that you can climb up to get up to the top of Allen Cove, leading me up the other side. The stunning clouds just rolling in, probably about my height, just over the top of the cove. And that just is gonna add so much energy and so much drama to the image. Now, settings-wise, I've tried a couple of things because it's so windy. So what I've had to do is up the ISO to ISO 500. That's then allowed me to raise the shutter speed to 1/10 of a second, and I'm at I'm at f11, sorry. It's very windy, it's very cold. I've got that nasty cough still, but it's great fun. So I'm struggling to concentrate a little bit as I'm trying hard not to get blown off this cliff, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Fairly straightforward, I think. All right, last little check. I'm focused in. I'm gonna flick it into manual focus, just double check that on the focus. Yeah, that looks good. Right, 2-second timer. I'm gonna hold the tripod as firm as I possibly can and then shoot. It just looks really nice with the cliff coming up from the bottom edge of the image. So much detail there's so much detail in that rock. I'm gonna draw all of that out, remove that green from it as well, and we're gonna go back to the studio, get this image into Lightroom and turn it in to a really dramatic, or more dramatic image than it is already. This is a good technique for these shots in bad weather. So, this is great fun. I'll show you the image now and then I'm going to start heading back to the car. Right, back in the office now, and we're going to get into the computer and have a look and see how we can turn an image like that, taken in bad weather, into that dramatic style that you've just seen. But before we do, I want you to check out my new t-shirt. Have a look at this. It is the brand new, I'm quite close to the microphone now, the brand new landscape shooter t-shirt from First Man Photography. It is the Fibonacci sequence and golden spiral, and with landscape shooter there. So you can check that t-shirt out. It'll probably pop up in a box just below the title on YouTube, or head over to the website to my store at firstmanphotography.com/store, and you can also find it there. But I really love it if you were to check it out, and if you buy one, that supports me to keep on creating these videos. Right, let's get into the computer and we'll get into editing this picture. So into the computer, and this is another example of how this editing style can really, really work for you. It just creates that moody, contrasty, interesting feeling that really just enhances, like I was saying, the energy and the power, the bleakness and the interest that you feel when you are there. It's slightly more editing than I would normally do, but I think it's really worth showing you the different kind of feeling it can bring and the power that it creates as well. So here's just a few examples I posted this week on Instagram. Do make sure you're following me, but that was a little while ago in the Lake District. This is the image that I have started with. So like we were at the scene, it's bleak, it's fairly dark, it's dramatic, but I want to enhance that in a similar style that I've just showed you. So first thing I'm thinking about is there's just so much green in this image. And like I said a couple of weeks ago in the video, I'm not really enjoying green in my image at the moment. I really enjoy the spring greens, that bright, lush green that you get in the spring. At this time of year, it's not the green when you're there that really gives you the feeling. It feels much more bleak, even though there is a lot of green at all times in the UK. So I just want to desaturate that green. That's one of the things we're going to do. So let's go into the develop module of Lightroom, and we will start to edit this picture. So I'm going to start up at the top here. I'm just going to leave the white balance alone at the moment, but I want to start by just very simply adding a good bit of contrast. So I'm going to go up to about 42, maybe a little bit too much. Let's just bring that down a touch there. And then I want to bring the highlights down as well. And I'm also going to add in a ND grad just to bring the sky down a bit. So I'm going to do that by probably, let's just go with how it looks to about there, maybe a stop and a half. Bring the highlights down as well, just to bring in that deep dark color and the sort of eerie shadowy feeling that I was getting at the time. And then I'm just going to up the shadows I always up the shadows when I bring in a software grad, because this area will be reduced in saturation, in exposure, sorry. So I just want to bring that back up with the shadows, because it's only the sky that I want to darken. Let's just drag that back up a touch. And then I am going to bring the whites back up, because you can see on the histogram up here that the whites are falling well short. So I'm gonna hold down the Option key and just, not on that though, let's come off the grad. Just do that on the whole image, hold the Option key down, start dragging the white up, and then you can see it starts to creep in over in this area here. That makes sure that we've got white in the image. So now let's come down to the blacks. I'm just going to leave that as it is at the moment. It looks just about right. I'm going to introduce, actually I'm going to reduce the clarity a bit, because the rocks here look supremely sharp. So I just want to bring that down a bit, because it almost is overpowering that part of the image. So I'm going to go down to -10 on the clarity, and then just leave dehaze alone. I'm going to introduce some vibrance, and then I'm going to start desaturating the image and remove some of the saturation. So just remove that down to about 40, and you can see that green already starting to come out of it. I'm going to go down to the curves here and just start with medium curves, bring that dark feeling back into it even more with that added bit of contrast there. Then this is where we start to really make the difference in what we're doing. So I'm just going to scroll down to the HSL panel, which is just down here. Now on the hue tab, I want to start desaturating or changing the colors mainly of the greens. So I'm going to start just with red, see what that does. It's not doing too much. It's affecting the colors down here a little bit. I'm just going to bring that down. Green, sometimes when the green that you can perceive, a lot of that sits in the oranges and the yellows, not just the greens. So start to bring the oranges down. You'll start to see slight changes, and it'll be much more dramatic now as we do the yellow. You can see that green is now starting to become much more orangey yellow in color. Again, we're going to do that same thing with the green, bring as much of that out of it as possible, and you can see the dramatic difference that's now having. I'm just going to leave the bottom three, but I just want to bring the aquas down a touch, just there. There's probably not much aqua in that image, but maybe a touch of it in the rocks, just to bring that down and change that color slightly. So I want to have an overall slightly green cinematic tinge to the overall image, but not in the grass and not having that bright green there. Right, now we are going to come down and start to introduce that filmic cinematic style look with on the split toning panel here. So I'm going to start with the hue on the highlights here, and I want to I want to put some more blue into the image. I'm going to actually do the same with the saturation, bring that up to around there, bring that down just a touch, then start to introduce the saturation. So I'm going to go up to about 15 on there, and then about 10 on there, and that looks pretty okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just adjust the white balance slightly to bring in more of that blue feeling. So dragging that down, bring in that blue, cold, bleak feeling to it. I'm going to go down to about there. That looks pretty good. And then, like I said, I want to introduce more of that green tinge to the overall image. So I'm just going to bring the white balance down there. That changes the color of the blues a little bit as well, and just furthers that slightly cinematic feel that we've got. Let's just have a look at what strong contrast does on tone curve. Yeah, I like how that looks. So now let's come back down to the HSL panel, and I'm just going to go to saturation, and all I'm going to do here is remove more of that green. So I'm just going to drag that green right down. It goes nice and dark. And I just want to balance that out with a bit of extra luminance. So put the luminance back up so we don't lose all the brightness in the image. I'm then going to come back up to shadows up here and just raise those up probably to about there, and you can really start to see the effect that color is having. It's looking bleak, it's looking cinematic, it's looking dramatic, and we're really starting to get that really nice feeling that I'm after. That's pretty close now, but there is one other thing you can do to affect the color. You don't always need to do this with every image, but if we just come down, let's just turn that on, do that just to remove that distortion, any vignetting, and yeah, that's looking decent there as well. And then come down to this area here. So you have the calibration here, And we can affect the color quite a lot in here as well. If we just blue primer here, that's gonna have a big effect on those greens again. You can just further that effect. I think that's gone a bit too much for me there, but you can see what it does. So I'm just gonna bring that down a touch, bring that down to about there, and I'm gonna drag that back down as well, just to be a bit more subtle. Right, we are getting pretty close now, but it's still lacking just a little something. It feels very bright right across the image. And I want to really put focus in on this middle area of the image because that's where the focal point of the image is, right in on this cliff. I like the foreground interest here that kind of drags you around, but at the moment, it's too bright. And I don't feel like this area in the middle is bright enough. And there is a very simple tool we can use to put emphasis onto a particular area of the image. So you just come up here, activate the radial filter, and then you're just going to essentially draw a circle like this. Essentially, it creates a mask that we can then affect up here once it pops up. What you then change on the mask settings up here affects everything outside of that filter. So all I'm going to do is drag the exposure down a bit, really, because then it reduces the exposure around the cliff area and just keeps all the sort of interest and the detail of this image. Let's just do that and change the shape of it a bit because I want to have as much drama in around that cliff as possible. You can just play around with this till you get it right. But I want to do that. I'm going to reduce the exposure a little bit more and then increase your exposure back up like that. So I really now got that center part of the image nice and bright. I can still see all the bits outside of it, but all the focus, it pushes the focus and all your attention into the area of that radial filter because I've reduced the exposure everywhere else. I'm just going to up the shadows a touch more just to bring out a little bit more detail over here in these trees. Let's bring the radial filter back up and just expand that a touch like that. I don't want it on this foreground. What you can then do once you've done this kind of editing is there's a lot more editing here than I would normally do, but I just think this cinematic, dramatic look works really well for images taken in bad weather. What we can then do is if we come up to develop, you can then save it as a preset. You just click on new preset there and save it as a preset, and it will do something similar to other images. I've just noticed there are some people in the image there, so I'll probably remove that person there and that one there. Just do that quickly. Do that, and do that. I will spend a bit more time on that, but just using the spot removal tool there, just very quickly get rid of them. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's dramatic. It's creating that bleak feeling I had when I was there. I've now created a preset, so let's just pop over to another image that we have here. Hit develop. I've already saved that preset. I've called it bad weather. Then you just go into the develop module, come across to the side here, unwind the preset thing here, come down to bad weather, hit that, and bang, just like that, with my preset saved, it creates an image like that. Within that preset, that radial filter is set, so you might just want to adjust it around a bit to make sure that it's highlighting the things you want it to highlight. And also, I want the sky a bit darker on this, so I'm just going to highlight the grad there, select it, and then probably just bring the highlights down a bit more like that. Maybe reduce the exposure a touch more to how I had it on that previous image and how I saved it in the preset. So nice dramatic style. You can save it as a preset and use it to your heart's content. I just really like that cinematic, desaturated, slightly bluey, greeny tinge that I think really furthers that story that I'm trying to tell of bad weather images. Okay, so that's it. Let me know what you think of this editing style down in the comments. Is it something you're going to use when you're shooting in bad weather? I'd really love to hear from you. Subscribe, like, do what you need to do, and I'll see you on another one very, very soon. I'm Adam. This is First Man Photography, out.